Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to English for Senior English for the week of April 13th. We'll be covering poetry now. So we just finished Who Fears Death, and now the goal is to start discussing what is poetry, how does it work, things like that. So previously this week, I asked you guys to examine literary terms. And some of you have already done that, and that's fantastic. So this is the assignment. Okay. And I was asking you guys to look at and just define these. These are pretty basic, very straightforward, simple definitions. And the goal was to use these. Now, with poetry, though, go back to here. With poetry, though, there's some specifics we want to be covering. So I'm going to start you guys off with a very famous poem, Sonnet 130 by William Shakespeare. We're going to be taking a look at that, discussing some definitions, some ideas, and everything. So I'm coming at you guys with some expectations that you are able to identify and know certain terms. For example, let's throw a little box over here. Change the size just a little bit to make sure it works. We can go vocab. Okay. So for example, you need to know what a metaphor and a simile is. Actually, say figurative language. What is that? What does that actually mean? Well, we can define figurative language as, where's my notes? I want to make sure I'm giving you guys a proper definition here. Writing or speech that is not meant to be taken. I'm spelling that wrong. Okay, so what does this mean? We got our metaphors, we got our similes, we've got our personification, we've got, what else do we got? Actually, we can go back and take a look at this page. Some examples right here. Further examples right here. Allusion. Where is it? Euphemism. Imagery. So the goal, there's a lot of different vocab words, and just want to make sure we get at least something pulled up the side. Now, one I am going to want us to deal with is, okay. So, theme. I don't like that. So, theme can be defined as the central idea or concept of a text. Now, there's a couple ways this actually comes out. One is what the text, what the reader thinks about the text, versus what the work says about the subject or topic it is covering. So the way that ends up being is like you can have different opinions about what's being covered versus example. So say you have a subject of a piece like we're going to do Pacific Rim movie I just watched because that's what we do when we're on quarantines. We watch movies, and the subject, oddly enough, is giant robots versus giant monsters. Fairly straightforward subject. Okay, now the theme though is about coming together. All right, and this can be built from the reader's perspective, how the characters to win versus the work, the text itself, talking about it. Cooperation is necessary. So that's kind of what we mean by what the reader thinks about the text. This is coming from our perspective. In order for them to win, we have to watch the characters work together versus what the work says about the subject. So in order for the one side to win, cooperation is necessary. All right. Now, just a little bit more, and then we're going to go to the work, and we'll be talking a bit more about how poetry is set up. Okay. And some things to look at. Okay. So just as a quick refresh, we find metaphor, if I can spell. I should not be surprised that I can't. A figure of speech in which something is described, compared as though it were something else. Does not use like or as imagery. Words and phrases that vividly describe sense language. So your five senses: hearing, seeing, tasting, touching, sound, and smell. Okay. All right. So when we do poetry, oops, that. Here. So in order to create the theme, the poet will actually use a bunch of this. So what I want to get to then, share, is the assignment I just posted, which is this. Okay, I'm asking you guys to take a look at Sonnet 130. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. So specifically what I want you to go and look at. All we're doing is I want you to define what the theme or purpose of this, and I want you to identify the central images and metaphor. So help you guys out a little bit. Cut. I'm just adjusting this to make it a tad bit easier to read and reference it. What we got. Take the same size. Just make sure single 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. I apologize. This quick change. All right. Oops. So poems are identified by line numbers instead of set paragraphs and page numbers. So it's important to, whenever you read a poem, to see what lines you are. So if I want to reference the fourth line, I know exactly what line is being referenced here. So your task is to examine this poem, identify its theme or purpose, and any central images or metaphors. What language does the author use to create the theme or purpose? So, Sonnet 130, my mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, then why then her breasts are done? If hairs be wires, black wires grow in her head. I've seen roses damasked, red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress's reeks. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And yet, by heaven, I think my love is rare, as any she belied with false compare. So, one of the more famous love sonnets, and it's pretty stark in its images. So your task is to figure out what's the theme. Okay, what is this text talking about? What's it trying to say? And then what central images or metaphors and lines is it used? So that's what the space down here is before. Okay, if you can't do this online, please do this on loose leaf paper and then email it to me. And that's it. So I want you guys just to, I'll be uploading the video right here for you guys. So you can watch this. It'll walk you through the basics of poetry. Throw this back up here one more time just so you guys can see this. So this is just some straightforward notes about what to look for in terms of theme, metaphor, and image. Have a wonderful evening and take care.